your answers to a minute or under. And if you go over this, you will be notified by me. This is a debate, so please feel free to not interrupt, but like interject and conversate with each other, answer to each other's answers. Those watching the stream at home, you can enter the questions for the candidates using the hashtag NUSU Debates 2021 on Twitter or through the comment section on YouTube. Please make it clear who the questions are for and if you want to remain anonymous. Unfortunately, the video live stream doesn't have CC or closed caption, but once the video is uploaded to the NUTV YouTube channel, it will. So if you need captions for accessibility, just in the question, put CC and there'll be someone in hand to write out the answer for you. So we're gonna start with the opening statements. Bree, if you'd like to go first.
Cool. Hi, my name is Bree and I'm a third-year film student from New Zealand. This year, students have had such a rough time. Thus, I pledge to make Newcastle a happier and healthier space where everyone feels safe, supported, listened to, and cared for. As welfare officer, I will improve mental and physical health, prioritize harm reduction, support underrepresented groups, and assist students struggling financially. I have plenty of experience in the SU, being a cappella social sec for 2 years, working in the co-op, and I was set to be freshers organizer last year. As well, I've worked as an inclusive buddy representing BAME and low-income students. Being a support for these underrepresented groups has allowed me to channel my passion for equality into actually helping students. This is a cause I deeply care for as a queer woman of colour, and I would love to take this passion further to create change for the whole student body. Thank you.
Awesome. Tanisha, would you like to continue?
Hi, I'm Tanisha, although a lot of people just call me T. I am a forensic psychology master's student and I'm currently the president of 20 Minute Society. 2 years prior to this, I was also the publicity officer for the same society. I'll try my best not to make this sound like a Tinder bio, but like I have this like innate desire to help people, and that's one of the main reasons I want to do this job. I'd like to be a psychologist afterwards, and hopefully this can help me get into that. During my time at university, I've had many struggles, including trying to find a sense of community in terms of my race, sexuality, and even my mental health. I want to make sure that no one feels alone, and hopefully I can help that. I aim to decrease stigmatization of student sex workers and recreational drug use. I will ensure that no problem is too big for the student wellbeing service and that no students turned away. The wellbeing of our students is more important than the reputation of the university, and I'll ensure that I will try my best to make sure your voice is heard.
Great. Alicia, would you like to go next?
Yeah, of course. So hello, my name's Alicia. I am a final year combined honours student. I've never been like involved in the bigger societies at NUSU, so a lot of you watching probably don't know me. But I have been involved in the SU and various sort of uni things since I started my degree. I've been a student council member, campaigns committee member, a community rep, the lead volunteer at the Student Advice Centre, a peer mentor, and a student staff committee rep. And in all of my work right across these roles, I've been really committed to making every student's experience in Newcastle as welcoming, safe and inclusive as I possibly can. And I think that commitment is needed now more than ever, just with how much our student lives have been turned upside down with everything that's going on. So that's why I'm running to be your welfare and equality officer with my 4C plan, which is community, care, cash and campaigns for a coronavirus recovery that really works for all students at Newcastle.
Great. Fansa?
I'm Fisher Patrick Adiakun, my name. I'm a student of I'm a master student of communications and signal processing. I'm actually an international student I'm actually from Nigeria though. So coming into Newcastle, I came into Newcastle briefly for an holiday in 2019, and I was actually passing through the school. I was like, wow, I would love to be here someday. But fortunately for me, I came back a year later and, you know, this whole COVID thing happened. So I looked around and I saw a lot of things, and I was hoping if I could have the opportunity to change some things around about the perspective of how students actually see universities. And I feel I have a lot of experience coming from an international community and a lot of populace like in my country where people are going to experience something different in this part of the world. I hope to bring a lot of ideas where I can engage students more in activities. I can actually engage students more about their mental health and bring about a big possible a big
Sorry, Fanta, I'm
message.
gonna have to cut you there because it's been over a minute.
Okay.
Sorry. Alex, if you would like to close the statements.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Alex Derry. I'm an international student from Kenya. I'm pursuing Masters of Science in Conservation and Ecosystem Management. As a student, I am always hurt when I see my fellow students dropping out of campus or struggling through campus life because of issues that we can solve. And therefore, this chance gives me the opportunity to serve you students. And the way I will serve you is garnering for more support from the administration down to our peer-to-peer programs, as well as the many student societies, so that I can be able to identify student issues promptly and be able to act on them up to the highest standards possible. So please give me your vote. Thank you.
Brilliant, and that is the end of the opening statement. So now we're gonna go into the questions. I'm gonna go to Brianna. You mentioned in your manifesto that you like to, and I quote, support students through COVID by providing medical assistance. My question would be, what type of medical assistance do you expect to provide?
Cool. So I know recently we've had some great news that we're coming towards the end of COVID, hopefully. However, we know how things can just change like this, and it can be really scary for students. I acknowledge we have limits in providing medical assistance, but I want to continue the LFD rapid testing, look into on-site vaccine administration, and continue to build upon previous necessities available like thermometers, hand sanitizers, masks, and vitamins, plus providing all of the information we need about COVID. Thanks.
Awesome. So when you say that you want to give out thermometers, sanitizers, and everything, those are things that have already been provided. And there's also a weekly email sent to students with updates on the COVID situation. So apart from looking into the COVID vaccine administration, do you plan on doing anything that's new for these little things like the health package?
Cool. I think the existing facilities that were in place, like providing hand sanitizers and thermometers, these are measures that were really important and made a difference to students at the time. And if things were to get worse again, I feel like it is so important to keep those existing facilities. In regards to the COVID news, I'd like to see something a bit more formal and a bit more widely publicized than just an email, because so many students don't actually check their emails regularly.
Okay, does anyone want to add anything to that? No? Okay. My next question is for Tanisha. You mentioned that you were wanting to give specific counseling for the effects of COVID, bereavement, and substance abuse. Would this entail hiring new counselors or training the ones that are already on campus?
Maybe a little bit of both. From my knowledge, from what I saw online, there's only 12 counsellors for like 28,000 students. So I know that there should be more anyway. But yeah, I've just experienced a lot, like my friends, especially have like gone to the student wellbeing service and were basically turned away and were told that the counsellors we have aren't equipped to deal with what you're dealing with. Go and see a GP, which is like a 10-month waiting list, and I just don't think that that's good enough. So I think both the current counsellors should get trained, and also more specific counsellors should be brought in for individual needs.
Right, you say that you want to well, you say that there's only 12 counselors, but I checked with Dorothy, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dorothy, but she confirmed that there were actually around 40. So my question is, to further pay these already 40 counselors on place, how would you fund the training plus hiring and the whole process of hiring new counselors?
I think that obviously the past year there's like with COVID we haven't been on campus. There must be money saved from that. People are arguing about like tuition fee like refunds, and like because students are aware that they're not paying for the quality that they've had, so that money must have gone somewhere. But even regardless of that, like I don't think it's a argument to say, oh, where we're getting the money. It's like we are going to find the money, because like it can be the case that when you turn someone away, that it can be literally a matter of life or death, and the student feels like they're going to fend back for themselves. So I personally think that it's bigger than just how we're going to fund it. But also like the NUSU website doesn't really advertise the right amount of counsellors then, because that's all I could find was 12, so it should also be updated basically.
Could I very quickly add something, please, Alex?
Same here.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, it was just to say, I completely agree with Tanisha's plan. Like, we do need a lot more support for students. I think we've seen throughout the course of the pandemic, there are, whatever the reason, budgets are getting tighter at NUSU and at the university. And I think maybe it's a bit unpopular with students, but we do need to be quite realistic about that. Like, ultimately, this role is a trustee of the SU, and we have some really quite big responsibilities. So as well as making sure that we keep good levels of staffing at the wellbeing services. For example, in my first year, I was really, really lucky to get some specialist PTSD therapy through the wellbeing service. And I know that that's a fantastic service that is really difficult to get anywhere else. But we also need to look at how we use other services as well as the counselling service. So there's things like the Student Advice Centre, who can point people towards more specialist services. And I think the Student Advice Centre is really underutilised. But we also need to maybe look at how we do GP registrations for when people really do need to be seen by the NHS and things like that. So I think it's a bit more complex than we need to keep funneling more money into it, as much as I agree that students need far more support.
To cut you there because it's over a minute. Sorry, Brianna, you wanted to say something as well, right?
Yeah, completely. I agree with both points. Supporting more funding for counsellors and specialised counsellors is part of my manifesto as well. But I 100% agree with Alicia, and we need to outsource and look at other alternatives as well. But part of what I want to do too is implement a 1-year priority package where we pump funding into the wellbeing services just for the 1 year, because there is an influx in mental health issues right now, and I think it's naive not to do as much as we possibly can. So yeah, and based on the success of this, hopefully we could continue offering support after the 1 year's over.
Awesome. Does anyone have anything else to add, or I'll move on? Okay, Alicia. Sorry, this next question is for you. You mentioned in your manifesto that you want to represent students from living in all parts of the city. How will you ensure that they are represented?
Yeah, I think we've got some really good structures at the SU already for doing this. Obviously, we've had the communities reps cut back to just one community rep, but we also do have a relatively new commuting students officer. But I think that it really needs support from a sabbatical officer to help them with that work, because obviously they're volunteers, they aren't paid. And we need to have more channels for commuting students, people living right across the Northeast, and people living further afield. There are international students who aren't going to be able to come back to campus. So we need to really review and consult with those students to make sure that we're making the university experience as good and as welcoming and as inclusive as possible, even for those students who won't be able to return to campus as per usual, and whenever the majority of people go back to in-person teaching. So I think consultation is a really big thing, and working really closely with the community rep and the commuting students rep and any international student bodies as well.
Awesome. Right, you mentioned the commuting officer. What would happen if next year, like this year, have been instances in which there's been complications in the communication with some part-time officers? How would you deal with that lack of communication or complications if you were to be elected?
Yeah, I think that's really tricky. So for a bit of context, I work as an executive officer of an organisation with thousands of members. I'm the communications officer. And I think it's just a natural part of working with volunteers that, like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, like people are really trying their best, but they're snowed under. So I think approaching that with a really compassionate attitude, because it's not their fault at the end of the day. Like, they're still trying to get their degree. They're still, you know, they might be like me and have lost their jobs and have to pick up various bits of work. I'm not going to blame them if they're not replying to every single email. I think there's a compassionate way to support people in doing voluntary roles. But I also think that I have the experience as someone who has commuted into uni and lived in the city centre, so being super close to uni. I think I have the experience to do that. And I've also got a lot of experience in local politics in Newcastle as well. So I'm really, really well used to representing people, regardless of whether I'm in their exact situation or not. So I'd really like to work closely with the officers, but and communicate with them really well, really compassionately. But I also have the experience to do that work if people can't.
Yeah, perfect. Anyone want to add anything to that? No? Okay, great. Also, you say that you have a holistic mental health strategy, but what exactly does this mean?
When I say holistic mental health strategy, it's basically more of a reach out, a wider spectrum of what is in place already. When I came in, I saw a lot. I've been with a lot of students of Newcastle University. Based on, you know, trying to reach out with other people that I can speak to. It's not everybody that can like come out and say they want to go to the wellbeing services. Some are actually like they quite keep themselves where they can't really have much people to talk to. Some are actually introverts. So when I say holistic mental health strategy, is like going wider than what we should be doing, trying to reach out to those that cannot speak, trying to speak for those that can't speak for themselves. So that's basically what I mean by holistic mental health strategy.
Sorry. But how would you make sure that you reach out to these people? Is there any policy or any sort of method that you have in mind?
Yeah, I plan to go as far as speaking to major university office holders and my fellow sabbatical officers and also other volunteers to be able to help out with what's on ground, because this COVID has actually brought sort of like a major reality check for everybody. So everybody's welfare right now is something everybody should be really be talking about, because it sounds like a soft topic, but coming from where I'm from and where I'm going, where I've been and what I've seen is a major thing we should really look at. And I feel somebody with much of the experience that I have, I think I have the capabilities to be able to handle this.
Great, thank you. Anyone want to add anything for that? No? Okay. Ooh. Sorry, so many buttons. Great. Alex, in your manifesto, you say you will, and I quote, increase the support given to students who are differently able. How would you ensure this?
First mechanism to do this is to make sure that there is more support than is currently there being offered to the peer and peer-to-peer programs, as well as the student societies we have in campus, because this is the first line of getting to many students in campus. And to get to know the issues affecting us as students, this is the first place to get to know the current issues. So the way I'll do this is to make sure that there is increased support to our peer-to-peer programs and the student societies, so that way I can be able to identify what issues is affecting the people who are differently abled and the way we can handle that.
Right. Okay. So anyone have anything to add? No?
Yeah, oh, sorry, I didn't get to the mute button fast enough. I'd completely agree with everything that Alex said. And obviously just emphasize the point that we need to make sure that we're doing that for people with physical disabilities, but also any kind of chronic illness, because I think that can make, whether it's a mental health issue or like a physical health issue, it can really impact your time at university, your like mental state, like the capacity that you have to complete assignments and things. So I think doing a really inclusive approach to the way that we handle disability at university is really important.
Can I add on to that? Yeah, it's also important to like not just classify them as differently able. It's good to look behind that, so that you can be able to offer what I can call tailor-made support instead of like categorizing them and saying this is a solution we will give to this category of people. You should go beyond that and get up to the student level, the individual student level, so that you can know the best solution to offer instead of just categorizing.
Absolutely, like taking a properly intersectional approach, because obviously a lot of the people who struggle with mental health issues are from other marginalized communities, especially marginalized genders and sexualities. So yeah, no, I would completely agree, Alex.
Yeah, same here. I'd just like to say I definitely agree.
Right, but to make sure that these all these people in intersectionalities implemented into the university, whether it might be with any policy or in any way, how do you have any, and this is an open question, is there any policy or physical idea that you want to take into place?
Yeah, I think Tanisha was right when she said that, like, I think this might have been before we started streaming, but like we are all one person. We can't, like, I am a queer woman of colour, but I can't claim to speak for all students of colour or anything like that. I think we have some fantastic structures at the SU already whereby marginalised communities are represented and there are proper consultations and reviews within those communities on campus. I think there's a lot of work that we can do through campaigns, which obviously falls under the welfare and equality remit. But work with those officers, such as the LGBTQ plus representative and things, to make sure that we're getting the views of students from marginalised communities on what they actually need, rather than driving it with our own ideas, as good as we think they may be.
Awesome. I just got a message from the former disability officer. Well, I didn't get it, but I've been passed a message from the former disability officer asking that we please stop referring to disabled people as differently abled. So just to put that out there to bear in mind. Right. Now, if anyone has anything else to add, I'll keep asking questions. No? Okay. Coming back to you, Brianna, you mentioned you want to prioritize regular drop-in sessions, but what exactly are these drop-in sessions? How are you gonna organize them?
Cool. So these would be weekly drop-in sessions, which would be like coffee meets where I can discuss. And basically, as welfare officer, I'm here for anyone who wants to talk to me, not just about issues relating to underrepresented groups, literally anything in general. So in person, this would be coffee meets, but obviously if things are in line, it would be over Zoom. And yeah, I'll just be there for an hour or two in the morning to chat to you guys about what we want to do.
So you'll be the one delivering these drop-in sessions?
Yeah, of course. It's just an open space where if students want to come and talk to me about issues, they can.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Dorothy, but did you factor that you might not have time for this because you might have to do other stuff? As I understand it, it's like a 9-to-5 job where you're probably going to have to take care of many other things. Are you sure you're going to be able to promise a drop-in session every morning?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. The nice thing about being a SAB is we do have control over our own calendars, and this is something I'd like to prioritize. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Right. These drop-in sessions, I know there are some of them done by the schools. SAC, for example, media has a drop-in session every Wednesday. So how exactly would it differ? Because these are done by counselors, while the other ones would be done by you. Isn't it better to have a specialist that knows more about this?
Well, sometimes students don't always want to go to a counsellor. It might be an issue which is slightly smaller. I'm in no way saying that I'm a trained professional, but I'm just being here as a point of contact to help a student. No problem is too small kind of mindset here. So yeah, I think for specialized things, I would take that student and refer them to the wellbeing team. But it's just to open a conversation, and I'm here to represent everybody, so I want to be there. It's important to make time for students.
I add on to that.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So one of my manifesto points was helping people who have like friends or people close to them who are struggling. And I think that that's something that's not really acknowledged. I know personally, like I've had a lot of friends who have come to me with like very serious issues, and obviously I love helping them, but like I don't feel as equipped as like someone professional. So I think that having drop-in sessions, like Bria was saying, for people who, even if they just notice that their friend is struggling and want like someone to talk to, even just alleviate all that stress, or even have someone to like point them in the direction of where they should go, because I know it's hard. So yeah, I just wanted to add that on.
Yeah, and sorry, just to very quickly add as well, completely agree, and I think this is a really exciting idea, and I think for whoever gets elected out of any of us, there's some real opportunities to work with the Student Advice Centre who have drop-in sessions, our community policing team who have drop-in sessions too, but also just to stress to anyone watching that like the Welfare and Equality Officer cannot take on like the job. I'm not saying that either Tanisha or Bree said this, but just to reiterate, like cannot take on a counsellor's role. We have like huge safeguarding concerns, like especially when we're working with not so much under 18s at a university, but vulnerable adults. There are massive risks involved and a lot of liability. It's the least sexy thing to talk about, but like safeguarding is super important, and I think we need to make it really clear to everyone watching that the role of the welfare officer is not to like provide advice or anything, but more to like point people and develop the correct services.
Yeah, no, I just want to say I do it as like a bridge, and like
no,
but I agree.
Yeah, and that's very much what I meant by this point itself.
Yeah, can I add a quick add to that? Yeah, also when you create a good rapport with the students, okay, you might not give them the solutions, but when you create that rapport, the students might, entrust telling things that they would want to say anonymously. Yeah, just like how we do. You might have a question, you don't want to ask it directly to the lecturer, and maybe you want to pass through the class rep. So it's that way. So they give you the issues, and maybe if they want you to scale it up to the counselors, then you can go on and do that.
Anyone has anything else to add? No? Okay, great. My next question is for Tanisha, and it's kind of related to that, because in one of your manifesto policies, you say that you want to ensure that every first year, and correct me if I understood it wrong, but every first year has a body, like the one-to-one body. How would you get enough volunteers to make this happen? And how would you fund it?
I do it as more, instead of like every single student that's like starting university gets one, it'd be more like if you feel like you would like one, you can sign up. And I think it'd be similar to like, I know I don't know what they call, like peer mentors maybe, like in like your subject, that we had like someone in first year who was like a few years older who like could give us advice. There was more like subject based, whereas I know when I came to university, like I left home for the first time and I was a bit like, this is a really big city, so I think I would have appreciated having someone who's been there before. Like I know I spoke to someone like in society advents who was a few years older, and like they were like, oh yeah, you'll be fine, do this, like give me some advice. And I was like, that would have been nice for me to like sign up for something like that, and like hopefully people would like volunteer for it. I don't think it's a job that people should be paid for. Like it's obviously like a really good CV builder and just something really nice and rewarding, like just personally to get involved with. So hopefully it wouldn't cost anything.
Dorothy, feel free to interject if I am mistaken, but as I understand that there's already a one-to-one buddy scheme that is being paid, like the volunteers are being paid. So the issue would come with how do you fund all these people and encourage more volunteers to come and help more first years without, you have to pay. Where do you get the funding?
Yeah, and I'm very aware of like the inclusive buddies. Like I think that's a great initiative that was set up. I think it was more of like less, not serious, but something just like kind of like a little friend, which I know like the inclusive buddies, like the vibe is, but it was more like someone, say if you come to university and you're struggling with things like about your sexuality, and then we could like match you up potentially and be like, well, someone who's been in that position would happily like give you advice and like be there as like a little agony aunt or something, potentially. But yeah, I know it would be quite different and hard to distinguish, especially with the new initiative that was brought in this year, but I think it's just something that could be like a conversation starter and just get it in the pipeline potentially if it works.
Wouldn't it just be better then to reassess the current peer mentoring scheme and see what we can do with that to fit the needs of BAME and low-income students more so, instead of creating an entirely new branch, especially because the inclusive buddies are really working on building ourselves up at the minute?
Yeah, potentially, like as long as I think it's developed, and I think it's a great like foundation, a great basis. I really think it's an amazing idea. So I think as long as something comes out of it, and like first years do feel a lot more like protected, I guess, and like welcomed, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think both of you raise absolutely fantastic points. I think there is a lot of difficulty with peer mentors. There's a lot of difficulty in terms of like getting enough people to sign up to volunteer to be mentors. I was a peer mentor last year, so my second year. And also like there are a lot of first years who haven't, maybe it'll be different because of the pandemic, a lot of first years who don't feel like they need that support. But obviously the peer mentors are done through the university. So I think the SU could play a role in pushing the university to review how they do peer mentoring. But absolutely, I think the inclusive buddy scheme has been absolutely brilliant. And as a BME and LGBTQ plus student, I would have absolutely loved to have had that in my first year. So I think potentially one of the best ideas would be to like expand our support for that, and really, really push it forward and make sure all of our marginalised or students from marginalised groups are aware of it. And can make the best use of the support that's available to them.
I completely agree, and I think the inclusive buddy scheme, if it could have a way more prominent place, would be amazing. But just to give a little bit of background, so we're actually funded by Your Voice, and a lot of the work we're doing at the minute, like our podcast and stuff with the Agony Aunt, we're not actually getting paid for. So I just do want to keep in mind realistically that some things there is leeway of what we can do, but if inclusive buddies could become much bigger with the university, that would be amazing.
Yeah, to add on top of that, we can also have audits and to make sure that objectives of all of these are being met, and also I believe NUSU can, send or kind of reminders to students, especially the new students to the university, to give them the knowledge that all these systems exist, all these societies are in place, all these support mechanisms are in place, because some students need help, but they are not very sure how they can help. So if NUSU sends how we get the emails, if NUSU can send the emails and inform the students of all these available supports, that can be really awesome.
Definitely. And sorry, I'm talking so much, but this is all just loads. Everyone has really exciting ideas. I think what's come of this is it sounds like it would be really great if we could have some kind of directory for welfare and well-being, because we have so many students, right? You said 28,000 students, and we have so many schools, and we have so many subgroups of those schools, and we have so many groups within the SU. I think a really great project that the next welfare and equality officer could work on would be to build some form of directory so that all of that support, or at least signposting to that support, is available in one place. So some kind of, say, like wellbeing hub or welfare hub or something like that, that people could access online and just find out the support available to them super easily. And ideally that wouldn't even be super expensive. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I completely agree. So this is kind of going on a tiny tangent, but one of my manifesto points is about increasing awareness for people with invisible disabilities. And the one thing I found from these people is that, whilst talking to everyone, is that there is a huge disconnect between all of these schools, all of these places, all of these faculties, and the wellbeing service. So I agree, some sort of directory would be really helpful.
And also making sure that people know what they're entitled to. Like, as a disabled student, I have a student support plan, which is fantastic from the wellbeing service, but like my lecturers don't act on it. My lecturers don't do the things that they're supposed to be doing. So making sure basically that all students know what the support available to them is and what their rights are, and
so
like entitlement is.
Yeah, so many people don't know that the student support plan exists. So I'm like, needs to be
most don't.
On that, my question is, how would you guys, as if you were to be elected as welfare and equality officer, make this plan, like make students aware that these plans exist, apart from sending emails?
Apart from okay, go on.
Well, I was going to say, faculties, well, the wellbeing service do contact students by emails asking them if they would like one at the start of the year. I think this needs to continue, obviously, but by signposting, we need to make it obvious what services we have on offer for students. And and we need to make sure that lecturers follow through on this. So one thing I want to implement is a system where, to get to the end of the task, the lecturer actually needs to read the full support plan, and tick before they can actually leave the document. And then they will be reminded of the support plan at the start of the next semester.
Yeah, and just 2 quick points. I think it's really hard as a disabled student or anyone living with a chronic health issue or a mental health issue. It's like, it's really hard to advocate for yourself when people who are in positions of authority are making these mistakes. Like, if a lecturer does something that's against my student support plan, I'm nervous. I have an anxiety disorder. I don't want to go up to them and be like, no, you've done this wrong, because like, they mark my work, they do my seminars. We definitely need to address the way that we support people to make sure that their needs are actually met by the university, but also on the sort of engagement in various support services. So my background is in campaigns and communication, and I work in an organisation with thousands of members, and a lot of my job is pointing people towards the right support. So we've, in the sort of 4 months since I've taken office, we've massively increased our engagement with things like our election support fund and things like that. So I think I have a lot of experience in making sure that people know what they're entitled to and engaging people in support that's available to them. So I'm happy to implement that, and that goes for like whoever wins, happy to help.
Yep. Okay, just to sort of start wrapping up, I'm just gonna fire out some questions. Panzo, you say you want to sort of redefine student life. How exactly would you do this? Is there any a specific policy that you want to implement for this?
Yeah, basically, because one of the reasons why I want to get elected is I've always wanted to speak for the silent majority that really want to do things but don't really know how to go about them. So my way is, if I can work with the activities officer, then go into each department and speak to the major reps. And another major part is I want to involve another major population of the school is the postgraduate students that don't really get involved in most of the things so far. So I want to involve students from each discipline, every discipline, every school of the school, and try and bring them together and try and tell them or give them a message that, okay, fine, we can actually function together. You don't really have to be an undergraduate or postgraduate for us to be able to, have fun and do all those kind of things. So it's not really an only job thing, but I think I can actually work hand in hand with lots of students. Yeah.
Sorry. Just about to cut you up there. Awesome. So Alex, my next question for you is how would you increase the support for societies and peer-to-peer programs?
So I'll gather for more support from the university. So the university has a lot of capabilities. If you take a sneak peek at the books of account for, say, NUSU, you will agree with me that it is capable of supporting the genuinely needy university students. So there is no need of someone dropping out of campus because he or she cannot be able to meet the full tuition fees or the full accommodation fees, while NUSU is capable of providing for these genuinely needy students, So this is what I'll advocate for. This is what I am willing to go an extra mile to make sure that the student life is very fulfilling and no one is, drops out of because of such issues that we are able to solve and address.
Awesome. Dorothy has a question, I think, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, quite a lot of you have mentioned harm reduction style policies within your manifestos, and really support this. However, Nadia has been doing a lot of work on it this year, such as getting an amnesty bin, working on a report to get drug testing kits and a harm reduction stance from the university. I guess my question is, how will your work build on this work that Nadia has done to complement it as well?
Cool, I'd love to take this one. So firstly, I want to see to it that these drug testing kits are implemented and will be easily accessible for students. But I also think that we need to bring an addiction support specialist into the wellbeing team. Oftentimes, mental health and harm, drug-related harm, are linked hand in hand. And especially during coronavirus, we know a lot of students are self-medicating. I think it's really important that we bring somebody there for support and guidance, seeking help, and someone that students can actually open up to. I would also like to provide a lot of information on how, because the safest way to do drugs is to not do them. And in no way am I endorsing students taking drugs, but they need to have information available on how to do it in the safest way possible. Because otherwise we're just exposing students to further harm, and we've seen the detrimental impacts of what can happen when we do this. Thanks.
Alex, you're on mute.
Sorry, you're on mute.
Other Alex, sorry.
You're still on mute, sorry.
I really don't know how to do computers, don't I? Sorry. So I think we're gonna have to wrap up and move on to the closing statements now. So if Alex, you wanna go ahead and start that?
Thank you. So my main aim is to get down there up to the individual students level. And the way I'll do this is to make sure that I can get as much financial and other kinds of support. This includes counseling, up to the peer-to-peer programs, as well as our students societies in campus. This will enable me to identify the student issues coming up, the current issues promptly, and making sure that if I am not able to solve them in the shortest time possible, I scale them up and amplify them up to the relevant personnel in the university and do all the appropriate follow-ups to make sure that all the issues raised up by these students are solved in the right manner.
Perfect. Fancy, do you want to go on?
Yeah, my plan is actually quite straightforward, and I've listed it in my manifesto. If I'm being voted for, and hopefully I can be, I hope to actually implement all my plans basically and try to bring students more together and trying to tell students that we're one, try to help students in whatever way I can, both mentally, financially, and in every way. And I'm easy to talk to. And I would also like to say thank you for all my candidates. I feel anybody here elected is actually going to do a great work. So kudos to you guys.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Alicia.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that and just say thank you so much, everyone. That was genuinely very lovely, which isn't something you see a lot in like election debates. And thank you especially to everyone who's watching and the people who I don't know who've been messaging support. That's really lovely to see. Yeah, so I think everyone has some really exciting plans, and I think that whoever you elect, there's a really exciting way forward for NUSU, and building on the work that Nadia has done. I do just still think that obviously we need to be looking at the way that we do our coronavirus recovery. You can check out my manifesto on my Facebook page or Twitter. But yeah, I really look forward to having some more chats with everyone before the end of the campaign. And if you have any questions about my manifesto or ideas, just drop a message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want, and I'd love to chat to you. So thank you very much, everyone.
Tanisha?
Yeah, I'd like to echo that as well. Just thank everyone for coming. I was so nervous today, but I've actually had a really good fun, so I'm happy. Thanks Dorothy and Alex as well for all the questions. I've loved campaigning so far, and I'm still doing it every single day. So if you go on the hashtag #VoteT4WE if you want to find out any more. So grateful for the opportunity, and I promise that if you do elect me as your next welfare and equality officer, I will fight every single day to make sure the university doesn't stay ignorant on crucial topics. Although I will be, if I get elected, a university staff and a trustee of the university, I'll just be a friend and a confidant. I'll fight for destigmatisation, fight for change, and fight for you. Thank you.
Awesome. Brianna, would you like to close that?
Yeah, so again, I just want to echo what everyone has said. I've been so inspired by the other candidates and also just everyone that's been messaging with support. I've had people that I don't even know approach me, and it's been so exciting. Big thank you to everyone who's organized this event today, and thank you to you watching as well. I know we only touched the surface today, and there's so much more in my manifesto. So I'd be happy to answer any further questions you might have if you just go to Vote for Free for Welfare and Equality on Facebook. To finish, I will improve mental and physical health, prioritize harm reduction, support underrepresented groups, and assist students struggling financially. So vote free to make the change you want to see. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining today. And I wish you the best of luck in every campaign. And yeah, I'm excited to see the results on the 5th of March. Well done, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you all on the
Thank
5th.
you very much.
Bye.
I'm just gonna...
It's really awkward. I want to
You
break
stay?
into my emergency penguin.